Hola a todos and welcome to a very special episode of Konnakol 2020, episode 200. And because of that, I decided to answer one of the most common questions that I've been asked in these 200 days, which is, what is my story? Or in other words, how come that an Argentinian guy, or at least for those of you who do not know that I am from Argentina, how come a guy with a Spanish name is every day of the year posting about the vocal percussion tradition of South India? I mean, how does that work? So, well, if you ever wondered about that, then this video is for you. I was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina in 1978 into a family that was 50% Jewish, Ashkenazi Jewish, and 50% Southern Italian, which makes me, of course, 100% Argentino. And even though I was not born into a musical family, I was attracted to music from a very early age. In fact, I remember being not more than 5 years old and being completely drawn into the piano of a family friend, friends of the family. And I remember spending a whole afternoon trying to get one song, to learn how to play one particular song that was popular at the time on that piano. And soon after, my parents realized that. And when I was 6 years old, I was already taking piano lessons. So I naturally focused on the piano. I studied the piano for over a decade. And honestly, I thought that would be it for me in terms of music. But everything would change in 1999 when a friend of my mother's, who was a singer and a music teacher, invited me to attend a series of world music concerts. And by that, it was meant that Argentinian performers that had learned different musics would perform, show what they did. And it was music from Galicia, from the Bushmen of Africa, from Sephardi Jews, and from the Hindustani classical North Indian tradition, performed with sitar and tabla. And while I knew what a tabla was at the time, because, I had heard the Beatles and all that, I had no idea that there was one person that would actually perform and teach the tabla in Buenos Aires. So right after the concert finished, I went to the tabla player and I said to him, "Hello, my name is Carlitos and I'm going to be your student." So I took my first tabla lesson with Rasikananda Das on 15th of September of 1999. And I must admit that I took to the instrument really, really well. I mean, I was performing on stage with Rasikananda only 4 months after that, like in January or February the next year. And looking back, it is kind of crazy if you think about it. But I really, really got into it, and I was studying very hard all that time. And I even started to teach myself within the framework of the Sargam School of Music, which is a school that still exists in Buenos Aires. And by that I mean that I started to introduce the absolute beginners into the basics of tabla playing, just like Rasikananda had done to me like 6 months previous. Meanwhile, Celtic music, and in particular Irish music, had always attracted me, had always been something special to me. And I remember clearly being really very, very small, 5, 6 years old, watching a documentary about Ireland with my mother. And I remember being very little and just pointing to an image of those cliffs and, the beautiful countryside, the green countryside of Ireland, and telling my mother, I want to go there. And so in 2002, I managed to do that. Of course, in the wake of a very bad economic crisis in Argentina, I decided, you know what, I'm going to take all my savings. I was 24 after all, 24 years old, and I'm going to go to do the trip I always wanted to do. So I went to Ireland to attend the Blas Summer School of Irish Music and Dance, which is a very prestigious summer school nowadays. It wasn't so well known back then because it was kind of starting, but now it's a super well known school, and to anyone that can do it, I really, really advise you go there because it's amazing. And of course, it goes without saying that I went there with my tabla. So I went there with the tabla, tuned in D, of course. And I think people, they have told me that still remembered, the people at Blas, that this Argentinian guy came all the way from Argentina to Ireland to play Irish music and learn Irish music with a with an Indian percussion instrument. I mean, that's me.
And I met there some incredible people, chiefly among them a Slovenian girl called Ksenia. And as you can imagine, we fell in love like only people in their early 20s can do.
But eventually I needed to go back home to Buenos Aires because I had a job back there. So we continued our long distance relationship with Ksenia, and I started to play the tabla with Irish music bands. So with Argentinian bands that played Irish music, such as the Shepherds, and those are bands that do not exist anymore. But my point is that everything that I picked up in Ireland, I started to use immediately in Argentina as well. And the long distance relationship finally ended because on the 3rd of February 2005, I came to Slovenia finally, and it was an absolutely unbelievably cold winter there. I remember the temperatures went down as low as -20 degrees in Ljubljana, which is not common at all. So you can say it was anything but a warm welcome.
We got married in 2007 and we moved to the countryside in 2009. And this is Floopy.
In terms of music, I continued as best as I could my lessons with Rasikananda, and I tried to also teach tabla here. I had a few students, and I also had the rare privilege of attending a few workshops and master classes here in Slovenia with no other than Tal Yogi Suresh Talvalkar, which was an absolute unexpected privilege. I have always been a very restless person when it comes to music, so along the way I picked up quite a few more instruments. So all sort of percussions, of course, but also cajon peruano, and kanjira, which is an instrument from South India, and darbuka, and many others. And in 2012, my love affair with the ukulele here started, but honestly, that's a story for another video. And so after many years of trying to replicate the Sargam model of teaching Hindustani music that we had in Buenos Aires, I realized that simply that model, which was very traditional, very Guru Shishya Parampara, would simply not work here in Slovenia. I had to come to grips with that. So in 2015, I decided that I would not be focusing exclusively on playing tabla within a traditional context, because for one thing, there are no sitar players here. So I decided to open up to fusion. And it's very interesting because right after I made that decision, a couple of weeks after that, I got in touch with Norea, which is the most prominent, the best band in Slovenia that performs Irish music and Celtic music. And I had been aware of them, but I never kind of got around to talk to them. But that happened right after I decided to start doing fusion, and we've been collaborating ever since. They are an amazing bunch of people. They play absolutely fantastic music, and I also have participated in some of their records, so you should go and buy all their music. And then in 2018, I started to accompany my very good friend Emilia, who had been and still is learning vocal music, Carnatic singing, with no other than Chitravina Ravi Kiranser. And of course, I accompanied her with tabla because that was the only instrument I knew. But very quickly I realized that the Carnatic and Hindustani traditions were so different that I was left with no option but to find a teacher that would teach me Carnatic music, Carnatic percussion, and mridangam. And that is exactly what happened in October 2018, when also via Emilia, with Emilia's help, I found myself a teacher, which is who is Praveen Narayan, that you can, contact him, and he can also teach you everything he knows. He is the man. Don't ask me to give you lessons. Go to him. And I also bought Mridangam in G sharp, which is Emilia's pitch. And I started the Skype lessons, and I have been studying ever since. And as you can imagine, considering that I've been putting a new video on Konnakol every day of this year, I fell in love with Konnakol immediately. Of course, I knew what it was, but I had always felt from a Hindustani perspective that Konnakol and Carnatic music was absolutely outside my reach. It was something like so complex and so more developed to my eyes that I always said, you know what, no, maybe next life. But now I have taken to Konnakol really in a big way. And I personally think that Konnakol might be the culmination of my rhythm journey, if you want, because I remember being very little playing piano and being fascinated by the odd time signatures in Bela Bartok's pieces for children, for piano. And from that perspective, when you look at those, odd time signatures, odd subdivisions and all that through Carnatic music and Konnakol lens, it's all super simple. So I really think Konnakol has the potential of staying with me for the rest of my life.
And finally, a few days before the end of 2019, I decided I needed, like a New Year's resolution, like I needed to consume less and create more. So I was in the shower and I thought, okay, how about if I document my daily practice of Konnakol and Mridanga? And I said to myself, well, I'm doing it anyway, so it shouldn't be too difficult, right?
Well, it was definitely more difficult than I had anticipated, because immediately I started to increase the production values of the videos. But the idea has always been, and that has not changed, to maintain this rhythm, maintain this obligation of uploading one video a day and then see where that takes me. And as I do have a background in teaching, it's no surprise that, let's say, the last 100 videos in the series are more educational, with the structure, the transcriptions and all that, because that is what comes more naturally to me instead of, let's say, performance. I don't feel that I am good enough to have just a series of performance after performance. I still need to work on that, but I am good at teaching stuff. So that's how the channel looks like today.
I have a few plans for the future, but honestly, I need to be in the moment and focus on producing 166 more videos for Konnakol 2020 for this year.
So with that, I will just thank you for watching this very special 200th episode of Konnakol 2020, and let me know what you think in the comments, or Instagram, Facebook, any of those places, where to find me. And that's it. Thanks a lot for watching. I have been Carlitos from Slovenia, from my living room, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Goodbye.